Music podcast with me, Jack Reeves. This is the show in which we explore the importance of music in life by talking to the people who make it, the musicians. On top of this, we will be asking our guests their memories of live music, from their first gig to their favourite, as well as asking the all-important question, which 3 artists they couldn't live without. And all there is to do is introduce today's guest. Hello, welcome. I'm your host, Jack Reeves, and we have a great show coming up for you. My guest today is George Andrews, and he is the lead singer of metal band Take Breath. It's a really great conversation. We talk about where George's love for the genre of metal began, as well as the gatekeeping nature some fans have. We also have a discussion on music fandoms online and the toxicity that can come from that territory. Of course, we ask the all-important 3 artists for life question, as well as having a look at his first ever gig. Before you relax and listen, be warned, this episode does feature swearing. Right, let's get into it, and I'll see you lot at the end. Yeah, I'll start off with just asking about what is Take Breath?
Oh, that's a really good question. So I'll just give you like a history. Take Breath was started by our drummer Louis and a guitarist Finn and our former bassist John. And they'd been sort of jamming for a few months and come up with a few little instrumentals and that sort of thing. And they were after a singer. And I'd spoken to Lou about it a few times when Keep Calm was still sort of gigging about and doing that sort of thing. And when I was in Aberystwyth at uni, it was sort of like, would it be feasible? Because they were based in Shrewsbury. But I went over and had like a little jam session with them, and the chemistry was just there, like straight away. We all got on really well. And then it just sort of started from there. So we'd been chucking demos about and different ideas and like the direction of the band and what we wanted to do with it, and whether it was going to be more sort of like rocky originally than anything. And then Finn sent me over the demo for our first single, which was If I See Tomorrow. And I'd come home from a night out at about 2 o'clock in the morning and listen to that. And I was like, this is the one. And I wrote the chorus for that right then and there, and it didn't change, which is the only real aspect of that song that didn't change before we went to record it. Like there was a lot of different versions of that. And I changed like lyrics in the studio, and the night before, like I was lying in bed thinking about it, and I was like, say lying in bed, it was fucking sofa cushions on the floor. But am I allowed to swear? Is that...
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Don't worry.
And I just some of the lyrics came from that that session. So that was the first one we did, which was in, I think we did that right at the end of November of 2020. When we recorded it and then released it in January, and it did all right, and we were sort of hoping to get everything on the road, so we put our debut EP out in December of last year, but we wanted it out for June. We had it all written, and we were meant to go into the studio to record the rest of it in March of last year, and literally 2 days after they announced lockdown was when we were meant to do it, so everything sort of got delayed. And so we literally played one show in the career of the band before it ended. We played a show in February.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Like it was, yeah.
Have you played since with them?
No, but we haven't actually played a show, but we've had a few like little jam sessions. But some of the material that we've written, we've never played together. Yeah. I do keep getting told it was my air freshener. If you heard that, I keep getting told off for giving too much away. So I'm gonna have to be a bit tactful. I know that I can say that we've just come out of the studio. For a new project. And we've never played that material together as a band, like fully. It's interesting, like the writing process for Take Breath, how it differentiated between that and sort of previous bands I've been in. Because we're all sort of scattered about the country. So Peter and Louis are both based in Shropshire, and me and Finn both live in Manchester. So that's all right. We're close to each other, in that sense, me and Finn. But all the writing takes place online, basically. We just sling links and stuff back and forth to each other, and it's check out this bit. What do you think of that? This, that, and the other. So once the songs are like completed, in terms of instrumental, I put my vocals on, and write all the lyrics for it. But usually we have a concept for what it's going to be about before it's written. So I'll come up with drafts of lyrics that probably won't fit the songs, and then they're the sort of idea. But it was really born out of like, me and Lou had been talking like just as mates for a while, about music and the different bands that we liked, and we met up at an Architects show in Cardiff, in January of 2019, and it was him and John, and it was really cool to meet him there. But there's like, have you ever heard of a band called Holding Absence?
Oh, I've heard of them, but I haven't actually listened. No.
They're doing really, really well. Welsh band, just been on the cover of Kerrang, I think.
Yeah.
And they put an album out recently that's really, really good. Unbeknownst to us, they played Slam Dunk in 2018, and I was there, went to see them. They were really, really good. And then when they released their debut album, if you got like the physical, on the inside of the sleeve, there's a photo from the crowd.
Yeah.
Literally shoulder to shoulder as me and Louis before we'd ever met.
That's crazy.
Like,
you were born to be together.
Yeah, yeah. Predetermined.
Yeah.
So there's that history there, which is quite cool. And it's born out of that sort of mutual love for those sorts of bands. And we're sort of experimenting with different directions. The new stuff we've done is, every fucking band says this, but it's different. I think it's a massive step up.
Yeah. Well, I actually want to talk about that. The first EP you did was To Hell in All I Held Close.
Yeah, The Hell in All I Held Too Close.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, where did that name?
Oh! Sorry, the animals are kicking off.
No worries.
Yeah,
where did the name for that come from?
So we put out a song called Sleep, which was initially just going to be a single, and then it did well for our second song ever.
Yeah.
We put Sleep out in, I don't even remember when it was. It was summer of last year. It was hot. I remember that when we were recording the music video for it. Because we were sweating bollocks and had to wear jeans for the shoot, and it was hot. It was just ridiculous. But we put that one out, and it got like, I think it's on about 30,000 views on YouTube.
Yeah.
Which is really big for us, like, to have gotten that organically. We went through a company called Dreambound that do post loads of bands in that sort of sphere of music. And that was always like a bucket list thing, was to have one of our songs on there, because
did they contact you?
We messaged them. We initially tried to get If I See Tomorrow on there, but we just didn't hear back, so either they weren't very impressed by it or it went under the radar. But they liked Sleep, and we got Sleep on there. So there's a lyric in Sleep which is, there was heaven in all that I let go, and hell in all I held too close. And that was the title for the EP. Without Sleep being on there, we were originally going to do Sleep and If I See Tomorrow as their own like 2-track and call it The Heaven and All That I Let Go, and then do the EP. But we were having conversations about it when we finalised recording that EP, and just sort of said, like, I think Sleep should be on it. Because it's obviously the title of the EP is in that song. And it's done well, and it's like our little baby. It's a very, very personal song, probably more so than any of the others. They're all of the songs on that EP are quite introspective. They're written from experience, but that one in particular is like, it's about losing a loved one and that sort of thing. So now it's the opener on that EP.
Yeah.
and then it goes straight into Exumi, which is like just fucking heavy and angry. It's a nice, like, I think it's a bit of a tonal shift between the two. But that EP, it existed for fucking ages before it came out.
Yeah.
So the writing that we've done since then is like, the EP's been about for ages for us, but it's only been out for a few months. For everyone else, so the writing has taken a different direction, and it's just massive step up. For the new stuff. It's such a cliche thing to say, isn't it? It's like, something big's coming soon. I can't tell you when it's coming out because I don't know.
No.
But yeah, that one, we're really proud of it. Like, it's done a lot for us, and helped to sort of find our footing. I think a lot of bands do that. It's like your first release is you're experimenting with different things.
We're going to play a little extract now from the song Live Without, which is the final song on the Take Breath EP, The Hell in All I Held Too Close. I really like this song. I feel you can really hear the emotions in the vocals. If you want to check out this song as well as the EP in full, you can check it out in the link in the description where I put a link to their Spotify as well as their YouTube. There's also a link down there to our Instagram, which is at Choose Life, Choose Music Podcast. If you want to give us a little follow there where you can keep up to date on all the latest releases. Well, it got you into Metal Hammer magazine, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It did indeed. I forget about that sometimes.
Yeah.
Because that was so surreal, because we were sending out emails to different people like, do you want to promote our EP? And we heard from a few like really cool sort of online publications.
Yeah.
And then for them to get back in touch, we were like, surely not. This has got to be a joke. And there was some confusion about which issue of it was going to be in, because I bought one and it wasn't in there, and I was like, shit, maybe not. And then it was in the next one, so fucking mint. But that was really cool. Like, again, another really big full circle moment. One of our big influences is While She Sleeps, especially for Finn and Peter. They're both massive Sleeps fans, and I've been for about a decade. And I first heard them because it was like a mini album, like extended EP. I don't know, it was like 8 tracks, and that was taped to the front cover of Metal Hammer. And that's when I found out about them. So for them to sort of get their foot in that magazine, and for us to then be in it, was a really big thing. And they do their own podcast, and they gave us a shout out on there. They listened to us and really liked it, and that was like, I know how important that was for Finn and Peter in particular, but that was really cool for me as well. So it's done all right. We're really proud of it. We've got to do a few little physicals for it as well. We've done some cassettes. I've actually got one here. There we go. There it is. Very nice. Yeah, that was really cool. It's just done a lot of really cool stuff for us. And yeah, I don't know really what else to say about it.
Well, go on to like, especially with that album, especially the album cover, and with the singles you came up towards it, the artwork I thought was really cool for them. Who made them?
We've had a few compliments like that, which is really great. It's Louis, our drummer's sister, Holly, did the artwork for all of the singles and the EP. She's a really talented artist, Holly Doran. She's been brilliant. She did the first one for If I See Tomorrow, and then Sleep and Exumi, which were the singles, and then did that artwork. which is actually like we've got a practice space at Lou's, which is like a little mini studio. It's really cool, and the original of that artwork is on the wall in there. It's massive. It's absolutely huge. But it's really cool to see that in there because it's like, that was our firstborn. So it's nice to have a little tribute to it.
That's cool. I was going to go on to how did you realise that metal was your genre? Like,
this goes way back as well, and it's something I'll talk about a bit later. But so my dad was a massive fan of like rock and metal in the 80s, so bands like Judas Priest, Def Leppard, Twisted Sister, Iron Maiden, all the big boys,
the classics.
And he's got like every issue of Kerrang that came out for like a decade in a box somewhere. So he used to put the Kerrang TV station on.
Is that still going now?
I have no idea. I don't watch a lot of TV. I've got one. It's usually on in the background. But I
always remember Kerrang TV in school when we used to go into the gym. That would always be put on the TVs in there.
Yeah, we used to put that on, and I found out about loads of bands that I love from there. Like not necessarily heavy ones, but like bands like Good Charlotte were one that I absolutely adored as a kid. And Fall Out Boy, like that's sort of like 2000s emo stuff, which again I'll talk about a bit later. But the one that did it for me was Linkin Park.
The same with me too.
Yeah, they were. I'd never seen anything like it, and I was probably about 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And because I was right into it from like an early age. My dad used to. One of my earliest memory, like, is being in the back of my dad's Nissan Micra, and asking him to put "Rock You Like a Hurricane" by the Scorpions on a cassette, because we just used to listen to that all the time, and that was like my favourite song as a kid.
Yeah.
So it was just a natural progression from being into that sort of 80s stuff from an early age because of his influence, and then seeing all these sort of up and coming bands on Kerrang and Linkin Park. Like I think Paper Cut was the first one I heard, and I'd never seen anything like it, never heard anything like it, and I was like, that's so impressive.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to be a singer, but I'm not a natural singer. There's a bit of me singing on the first EP, and there's a little bit of me on the next release as well. But it was never something that came naturally to me. So once I got to about 14, 15, I started trying to do like the screaming stuff. And I was awful at it. At first, it's really bad. Like the way I used to do it was just totally off. It was like a really gross, like grunting sound. And but eventually I sort of figured it out, and I would practice to Linkin Park like constantly, and they were just a really big band for me, like growing up, listen to everything they've done. And like after like Chester passed away as well, that was like that hit so hard. That was like a personal grievance. Like I
didn't even know he died for a week because I was on DV that week.
So
I had no idea that I'd get back home exhausted, and then I look on my phone. Oh great, this as well.
Yeah.
It was like couldn't be.
Like that. Yeah, he was like a phenomenal vocalist as well. Like, listening back
the
to
screams
some of
and the clean singing.
Yeah, like listening back to some of it now. Like I still put those, especially the first 2 records, on a lot.
Yeah.
But like, and listening to the later stuff, you can hear how his voice evolved as well. And like, he was sort of in his 40s before he passed away, and like still top of the fucking pile.
Yeah.
Like absolutely unbelievable vocalist. And somebody I think like everybody who does that sort of thing should aspire to be as good as, or you'll never get there. You'll never be as good as that, but he's the benchmark, and nobody's surpassed that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
They were the big influence.
So, what's your screaming like now then? If you want to give us a demonstration.
No, I can't.
No.
It upsets the dog, man. Like, honestly, I'll be sat here demoing for Take Breath, and he hates it. So it's I have to wait until he's out the house if my partner takes him for a walk.
Listeners, if you want to hear the screams, check out the EP.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
And on the newest stuff, there's quite a few different like stylistic choices as well that deviate a lot more from that traditional scream. But there's it came quite naturally to me after I'd sort of cracked the code, and figured out like how to do different types of screams. You've got like the highs and the mids and the lows and that sort of thing. And then I just tried to imitate what other people did. If I heard a style of scream, I was like, that's cool. And then just sort of figured it out from there. So I have conversations with people a lot who are like, how'd you do it? And I'm like, I don't know. Because I genuinely have no clue.
Like, just evolved, didn't it?
Yeah, it's almost like putting a filter on your normal speaking voice.
Yeah.
Because it's not as loud as it sounds. It's very like controlled. And I really don't know how to describe it. It's hard.
I've definitely attempted in the past, and I'm like, this just isn't it. This ain't it.
It's all just like practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
Like the one I always give, and it's like a really common tip, is like just you've had a shit day, you come home, you sit down, and it's like you just take like a side. It's that sound, and then just projecting that and controlling that, and then you can pitch that to different ways. I don't know what style of scream I do. There's all these different fucking names for it. I get compared to the frontman of The Devil Wears Prada a lot.
Yeah.
And I hear it. There's a lot of similarities there between me and him, which is really cool because he's a massive influence on me. I love their music. They've got a new EP coming out soon, which I'm very excited for.
Yeah, I was going to go back to Linkin Park, actually, as you were talking about how they've evolved over time. And a lot of bands do that, especially in the metal genre.
Yeah.
And a lot of fans hate it.
Yeah.
Do you think metal elitism is as bad as people say, or does it get a bad rap?
Yeah, no, it is.
Yeah.
And like I was having a conversation yesterday with a friend of mine, called Will. He used to be in a band called Parting Gift, who were great. And he's done a lot of really, really cool shows and tours and played with a lot of really sick bands. And I was saying, I used to be like that. I don't know if you remember that, but like when I was about 14, I was like, I'm not fucking listening to it unless it's got a double kick pedal in it, and like, fuck off. And I think it did stem from like immaturity, because I found like that music, and especially like around that time, like 11, 12, going into being like 14, 15, it was like the coolest shit in the world to me. But like metalcore, when that was really coming about in the 2010s, with bands like Of Mice and Men and Asking Alexandria and like the big names then. I loved it. It was all I would listen to, and like I was really like, well, pop music's shit, everything else is shit, fuck off, I only want to listen to this. And I would very much make that known, and it's a really like just shitty mindset to have, because you're missing out so much. And like that era of pop music is not for me. Like the really like glitzy, overproduced, like I don't know what it is about it. I just find it a bit irritating. But now I think pop music's the best it's been for fucking ages. It's so good. There's so many brilliant pop artists. Like the new Billie Eilish track's amazing. I think she's brilliant. Ariana Grande is like a big one. I really love her. I think she's fantastic. Like one of the best singers in the world. Like there's loads of brilliant pop acts. I think like Post Malone did a lot for converting people who were of that mindset, maybe, because he's just writing rock songs over trap beats a lot of the time. And it works really, really well. And he's only like 25. I generally don't get on with other people who like metal that much, because I find myself having to like bite my tongue a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And not necessarily agreeing with a lot of it. Like, I love heavy music. Like, it's my number one passion, if you will. But, like,
yeah,
I find other people who are like that really insufferable. It's
no,
bad.
I know what you mean.
But, like, people who are like the proper, like, fucking metal people, like,
Yeah.
Slayer, they do my head in. I love those bands. I've got a lot of time for especially old school stuff because it was what I grew up with. But they're just like, nothing good's happened for like fucking, there's no good bands anymore. And it's like, well, yeah, there is, but you haven't listened to anything that's happened since 1995. So how would you know? And it's the same with, I think it's not exclusive to metal, but it's definitely like, there's a lot of gatekeeping.
Yeah, that's
like, it's especially like, there's some racism there still, like, particularly in the hardcore community, I would say. Like, they don't necessarily... hardcore, like, as a genre of music, borrowed an awful lot from, like, hip-hop in terms of, like, rhythmic elements, like, literally, like, musical elements, and then, like, aesthetically as well, like, the fashion sense behind it. But it's not acknowledged.
Yeah.
There's, like, a real sense of that there. And they just don't want people to like it. And, like, if you look at a band like Bring Me the Horizon, who I think are by far the biggest alternative act in the world, and they are somebody who's evolved their sound massively.
Yeah.
And they do it every single time they release something. They go from strength to strength. Like, they started out as that proper deathcore sound, and then they've done some really poppy stuff, which I think's brilliant. Like, the pop stuff's fantastic. And then the latest release goes back to being a bit more heavy. And they are one that just, like, the metal elites hate it. And I think it's because it's got a predominantly young female fan base, and they look at it as, like, well, I don't know if that's necessarily the case now. I think a lot of people are coming around to it. But certainly in, like, the 2010s, and they're like, it's not real metal, like, you're a fucking poser. I'm like, it is, though, and it's better than a lot of the shit you listen to, and they are better than a lot of bands. Like, as musicians, they are exceptional. So, I would say it's bad. There's, like, as people grow up, it gets dropped, but then you get people who sort of miss the train on.
Yeah, like, when I was younger, I was a lot like that. I was obsessed with System of a Down.
Oh, yeah, great band.
Completely obsessed. And my dad was like a massive Radiohead fan, and he was like saying, "Oh, you should listen to Radiohead." I was like, "Fuck that! They all sound the same, and they're just depressed." Yeah. But now they're like my favorite band ever, Radiohead. So
you listen back to it, and it's like, actually, they were really on something.
Yeah.
My dad was like, is the biggest Bruce Springsteen fan in the world. Yeah. Like, loves him. He's got absolutely everything he's done. There's more space dedicated to Bruce Springsteen in my dad's house than there is to me and my mum. And growing up, I was like, it's all the same. Like, it's just him talking about America. And then you listen to it, and it's like, man's actually a fucking genius. Like, he's just such a prolific songwriter. And I find him really impressive. Yeah. But Radiohead are brilliant as well. Like, I wouldn't necessarily, I'm not that well versed on them. But really cool band. Like, Tom York as a songwriter as well is exceptional.
I always look back and I'm like, well, why did I do this? I'm embarrassed for myself.
Why did I hate this? It's always the case, but
I think it's worse online, especially like places like Reddit are awful for this gatekeeping. Cause there's a band I like, Gojira.
Oh, I love Gojira.
Yeah, they released their new album last week. And everyone was like, oh, they're not heavy anymore, even though like they make really heavy shit. Yeah. And then they released this new one, and they're like, the fans are like, oh yeah, it's heavier than their last album, but still not heavy enough. Like, what can they do?
There's no pleasing people. Yeah. This is the thing, like, especially with social media, I find it so toxic, especially through like lockdown when you had a lot more free fucking time to look at social media. And I only recently joined Reddit and I made a point of following things that I knew would be positive.
Yeah.
I've totally ignored music on there.
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I
definitely
don't-
do. It's one of the regrets joining
Yeah.
those music
Like,
pages.
I'm in that many Facebook groups that I thought would be funny. And like, if you want to like stop enjoying something, join a Facebook group for it.
Yeah,
'Cause, like, the amount of shit, it just gets ruined because you've got all these people with shitty opinions. And the problem is with social media, I think it's a brilliant tool. It's the most important thing that's ever happened.
yeah.
Internet, like, it's ridiculous. But it gives everybody a sense of importance and that their opinion matters, when 9 times out of 10 it really doesn't.
Yeah.
And my opinion doesn't fucking matter. I'm very quick to share my opinion on things because I'm an opinionated person, but
Yeah.
I'm keenly aware that it does not matter. Like,
Yeah.
I do not have an important voice in the world. I'm just another person. But everybody thinks that they are. Everyone's got main
This is the
characters
part of the
in
show in which our guests
And
tell
it's
us about the first gig they
just
went to,
this
as well as the
total,
best
like,
gig
well,
that they've
my
ever
opinion
been to.
matters.
Remember
So
to
I'm
follow
just
us
saying,
at
people
Choose Life
told
Choose Music
me,
Podcast on
and it's
Instagram
like,
to keep up with the latest episode releases.
The
So
very
yeah, what was the
very
first
first
ever
gig I
gig?
went to was Twisted Sister at the Civic
Yeah.
in Wolverhampton. I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, it was surreal because I was a big like fan of them as a kid because my dad had all the albums, so I'd listen to him. And he was like, "We're going to go see him," and I was like, "Fucking yeah!" It wasn't like I was 8, you know. But that was amazing, and they've got that. Well, their biggest song's "We're Not Gonna Take It," isn't it? And for the entirety of them playing that song, he just said the word "fuck" to the syllables of like in time with it. And my dad was like, "You can sing along if you want." I was like, "Yeah." So I'm there like 8 years old, like fuck, 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 but it was mint. That was a really cool experience. Like, and that really
pretty eye opening.
yeah, it was wild, but it really made me sort of fall in love with live music. And I went to a lot of shows with my parents until I was sort of old enough to go on my own. Like, I've seen Journey like God knows how many times. I think I've seen Journey live more than any other band, which is odd. Like, but I love them. I think they're brilliant.
Yeah.
My favourite one. That's a really big one. Like,
You can have more than one.
There's a couple really cool experiences I've had. So there's a band called The Amity Affliction from Australia who were like my favourite band when I was like 15, 16. Absolutely adored them. And still I'm a really big fan of. And I've been to see them a few times. The first time, there's a really cool photo of this where like I was on the barrier and I sort of like pushed myself up so I was close. It was a really small venue. It was like 200 capacity. And there's a photo of him like just holding the microphone out to me. And that was really sick. But the second time, well, I don't know if it was the second. I've seen him a few times. Can't remember when. But I went to see him in Birmingham. I can't remember what the venue was. But there's like a massive room downstairs that I've been to see a few bands in. And then like a smaller room upstairs. And we were in the smaller room. And it was right at the barrier. It was like a foot between the barrier and the stage. And from like the first song, because I was that close, he just kept handing the microphone to me. So I was doing all my screams, giving it my all. And then we got into like halfway through the show and he was like, I remember this word for word because it was massive for me. And he was like, "Let's hear it for this motherfucker down here. This motherfucker can sing. Are you in a band? You should be in a band. Not this one though. This one's mine. Fuck you." And like that was amazing. And he let me do the intro for one of the songs. And after that, like that really solidified to me. It's like I should do this. So that was amazing. But in terms of like overall spectacle, Architects were amazing in Cardiff.
Yeah.
They had the pyrotechnics, and that's always cool. Like, I don't care what anybody says. If it was gimmicky or whatever, like having fire explode on stage is sick. that was amazing. Like, they put on a hell of a show. My head was pounding for days after that. But one that really surprised me was Turnstile. I went to see them at 2000 Trees, and I really like them. I've been a fan of them for a long time, and I went with Louis and Finn from Take Breath, and I was like, we need to go watch these, because there was nobody else on at the time that we were interested in seeing. I was like, we have to go see these. And before, like 10 minutes before they came on, there's nobody in the crowd. So we were right at the barrier, and then like 5 minutes passes, and I turn around and there's 5,000 people behind me. And I was like, fuck. And they were like, what are they like? And I was like, it's hard to explain. Like, they're sort of hardcore, sort of metal, sort of pop, sort of hip hop, but just like a brilliant combination of those things. And they came out and put on like this unbelievable show, and the singer didn't say a word in between. Like, it was all like, he just walks out and he's like waves, and like everybody went mental. And he just had this incredible control of the crowd without saying anything. Like, I cannot exaggerate that. He didn't say anything in between songs. They just played the songs, and the song spoke. And the way that he sort of moved around the stage, he just had like... But yeah, phenomenal showmanship. And I find like the bigger bands get as well, the less they have to say. Like, because you like Architects,
the songs speak for themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Like Architects, there was fucking thousands of people at that show, but everybody knew the songs. Everybody was there for that material. So he really didn't have to say an awful lot. He did most of his talking towards the end. Obviously, their guitarist Tom passed away a few years ago, and that was like a really defining thing for them. And they'd made a really sort of touching tribute to him at the end of the show. Towards the end of the show, and that was great. And yeah, just as an experience, that show was really cool.
In the final segment of the show, we ask our guests for 3 artists that they couldn't live without. It's like Des Island Disc, but better.
Who is your first pick for artists you can't live without?
So the first one, I've got to go with Manchester Orchestra. They put out the best album of the 2010s for me, like hands down. Nothing else came close.
Just to clear up, they're not an actual orchestra,
no,
are they?
It's a 5-piece. Are they 5 or 4? I think it's a 5-piece band. From America, and they've just put a new album out, like literally Friday, just gone. And it's amazing. It's called The Million Masks of God, but the one that came out previously was in 2017. It's called A Black Mile to the Surface, and it's just like the best thing I've ever heard in my life. Cinematic is the word for it. Like, it tells these two sort of intertwining stories. One's of a guy who's just lost everything, like just been shat on his whole life, and decides he's done with it, and he's going to go shoot up a grocery store and kill himself. It's quite morbid, but it's like beautifully put together. And then the other one is a guy, young fella, who's found out that his partner's pregnant, and he's not sure he's ready to be a dad. Works a low income job, really uncertain about it. And then it gets to a point, like, there's a song called The Sunshine on there, and that's like, his daughter's been born, and he's ready for it. He's like, all of every like insecurity I had about this is gone, like, and he's just absolutely in love with this kid. And then the next song's called The Grocery, where the guy's just lost everything. Is like, goes in, and he's like, right, I'm going to shoot this fucker up. But it's from his perspective, about him just being like just totally desperate, and it's where the father works, and that's where the two stories meet. But it's just like the climax of that song. It's like midway through the album as well.
Yeah.
And it's just like the way that ends. I recommend it to everybody. The way that song ends, just like I get chills talking about it. It's that good. Like it's just phenomenal. He like the lyric is like, I've been trying to find the right way to get out of here, and this is the only way. And just the way that it's sung, and like the build up you get in the previous songs of like that perspective, and the way the songs just sort of meet. Oh,
yeah,
it's the best thing I've ever heard. And that song, The Grocery, is like the best song of the 2010s.
I'll definitely give that a listen. I haven't never listened to them before.
It's so good. Like,
yeah,
and it's my most listened to album on Spotify in like the history of me fucking having an account.
What would you say? Would you say that song is your favourite by them, The Grocer?
Yeah, it's a heavy listen though. Like they're not a heavy band at all. Like they're sort of like alternative is the best way I can describe them. And like
I'm definitely gonna go and have a listen.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
I'd honestly just sit back, put headphones on,
yeah,
enjoy.
You believe him or you don't.
Who have you got for number 2?
Number 2, I'm struggling for this. There's 2 I had in mind, like straight away. First being Manchester Orchestra. Number 2 is a toss-up between Every Time I Die and My Chemical Romance. And I've got to give it to My Chemical Romance just because of the longevity and what they've done musically, and their influence. Like they were another band that I found out about when I was really young through Kerrang, and just adored them from the word go. Like they're like, I think they've been quite polarizing for a lot of people. There's somebody again that sort of fell victim to that like gatekeeping thing of like, again they've got a predominantly young and female fan base, so people instantly just assume it's shit, and they're just like the coolest band ever. Like I just think they're sick. There's not a single song by them that I don't enjoy, and every one of their records sounds totally different. Again, they're another one of those bands that just goes from strength to strength. Gerard Way as a vocalist, like upon first listen doesn't sound all that impressive, but when you listen to his vocals isolated and really think about like how he sings some of those songs, like he's unbelievable, so good. Like
you can definitely hear emotions.
Yeah,
when he's singing.
And that's what I've always been drawn to. I think is like the emotional expression of alternative music, as opposed to like a lot of other things. I think that's why I like pop music a lot now, because a lot of it's sad. Like, you know, there's a lot of like, it's a lot more honest, I think now, as opposed to like. And it's such a cliche, but the 2010 stuff was a lot of like, I make money and I go to the club.
Yeah, it's very grandiose about it all.
And now it's like, my girlfriend's left me and I want to die. And that's like, that's the bedrock of all good music. But yeah, Micah, like, they've done some. Like everything they've done has been conceptual as well, which I really admire. I'm a big fan of like a concept record, and our new stuff is conceptual. I can say that. I love storytelling in music, and I think that's why I enjoy the Manchester Orchestra one so much as well, is because it has that overarching story. And it's the same for My Chemical Romance. Everything is a story and detailed so nicely, but he does it in such a clever way lyrically, where it's like it's not blatantly obvious that it's part of a story, and each song stands nicely on its own. Like you could listen to any song off Black Parade and it would stand nicely as it is, like as a single, but when you put them all together, they are a really, really cool overarching story, and I admire that a lot. Like, I think that's, in terms of lyricism and like musicianship, really, really intelligent. Gerard Way as well. Like looking at him now, he literally is the spitting image of me now. Like if you Google like Gerard Way 2021, like we are identical.
Yeah.
Which is upsetting because he's 40 and I'm 24. But I'd like to look like 24-year-old Gerard Way rather than 40-year-old Gerard Way, but whatever. But he's like been through a lot in terms of his own like struggles with addiction and alcohol and drugs and all this, that, and the other. And see him like healthy now is really nice. And he's done really well. Obviously, Umbrella Academy was on Netflix, written by him.
Yeah. Isn't that a graphic novel?
Yeah, he's like the comic's been around for fucking ages. But yeah, he's done that, and he's doing really well for himself. And I've always admired him as a person. Like they've always done really great things. He's always been like a very outspoken advocate for a lot of things. I think the reason a lot of like particularly young people and women, and they've got a big LGBT following as well, is because he's always been very much on their side. And spoken quite loudly about that sort of thing. So I just admire like in terms of his ethos as well. I just really like him, and everybody in that band's very, very talented as well. Like Ray Torr and Franco Hero and Mikey and Bob, the drummer. All like just really, really good musicians.
If you had to pick a favourite song by them, who would it be? What would it be?
That's a great question. So my favourite album by them is Thank You for the not Thank You for the Venom. That's my favourite song off that album. It's Three Shades of Sweet Revenge, the album. But there's some brilliant songs on there. Like that was the one that really like catapulted them. But Thank You for the Venom's great. It's got this really sick like riff at the beginning. Ghost of You on there is great. But then on like Black Parade, they're one that's really hard to narrow down a favourite. I think I'd probably say I'm gonna say Thank You for the Venom, but that is subject to change. Every time I listen to them, I'm like, wow, this is such a good song, and I find like a new one to appreciate, even though it's been around for like 20 years now, almost.
And for your third choice artist,
it's got to be Linkin Park, just for the sheer influence and like again the longevity of their careers. Like Hybrid Theory is 21 years old, and if you released it today, it would still stand up. It was the very first album I ever bought with my own money as well. And I mean, we touched on it before, didn't we? Like, Chester as a vocalist and Mike as a vocalist as well, I think really goes under the radar, and the musicianship in there. Like I think there's like six members of that band, and you can hear that, which is cool. Like you see a lot of bands who have like these massive fucking groups, like Slipknot. I love Slipknot. There's no need for 9 of them. It's really cool for like a live performance. You've got, in terms of a spectacle, you've got 9 fucking guys going mental on stage, which is really cool. But with Linkin Park, like, you've got the 2 vocalists and then 2 guitarists. I don't know if there's 2 guitarists. No, like Mike plays guitar. And there's a bassist and a drummer, and then you've got Joe Hahn doing the samples and stuff. But you can hear every element of it, and that's really cool. And they've just, like, every album they've put out has had some really, really cool stuff on it. Like, the latest one got a lot of flack for being quite poppy, and they've very much moved away from that, like, new metal thing that they did for the first 2 records, which are my favourite, but not because they're, heavier, more so because, like, there's, like, a nostalgia factor there, and just every one of those songs holds up so well. Like, and it is still, it's like heavy as hell. Like,
One Step Closer, especially. So
and like if you listen to the production
to this day,
the production on it for that era as well, it's so tight. Like, it's really, really good. And yeah, just the influence and like their sort of range as well as musicians. I think the fact that they've evolved so much and changed, but those sort of songs have always existed in their catalogue as well. Like more sort of soft and melodic things, and yeah, just a phenomenal band. Like filled with really, really talented people, and they've been just at the top. And you know, they've spoken about carrying on the band since Chester's passing, and whatever they do from there, I'm sure it's going to be brilliant as well. It's very I don't think they'll replace him. I don't think that is a void you can fill. Like, he's, you know, such a distinct vocalist. But yeah, I think everybody who's ever wanted to do that style of vocal has started out listening to Linkin Park. Well, at least, you know, in the current sort of scene, you know, you'd be hard pushed to find anybody who wasn't influenced by them. So, in terms of favourite album and song, I mean, the first two, they're just on par to me, like, in terms of musicianship and, like, overall quality of an album. They're both just, like, outstanding. Favourite song, fucking hell. I really like Breaking the Habit. Like, that's one that I just think is, like, demonstrates, like, the depth of musicianship they had, even in that sort of early part of their career. But A Place for My Head, I think, off Hybrid Theory, because it's got a really cool riff at the beginning, and it's so dynamic. Like, it's like a fucking, like, screamo Bohemian Rhapsody. It's like so many different fucking portions to that song. And yeah, it's just fantastic. Like, yeah, everything they've ever done, I adore. And yeah, as I said, I'm just heartbroken by, you know, the loss of Chester Bennington. Yeah, I wouldn't be a musician, I think, without them. So that is, really big one.
I'm sick of the tension, sick of the hunger, sick of you acting like I owe you this. Find another place to feed your greed while I find a place to rest. I wanna be in another place. I hate when you say you don't understand.
Thank you, George, for coming on.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, and I'll put down your details down below in the description so people can check out your music and your socials.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's been brilliant.
Cheers. Great conversation there with George. I was going to attempt to do a sort of metal scream in this outro, but I don't want to embarrass myself because that will sound absolutely awful. If you want to listen to George's band Take Breath, you can check them out on Spotify, and their Instagram will be down in the description below. Of course, follow our Instagram at Choose Life, Choose Music Podcast. Simple as that. We're also on YouTube and SoundCloud if you want to check out any other episodes. All there is to do now is say goodbye, see you on the next episode, and have a good day. See you.